All right, so welcome Cohort 8, Cal APA Training 1. Just so you know, I will do follow-up and I'm always available for consultation if you guys need support beyond just tonight. Okay, I told you that suffering is never mandatory. Uh, I know some of you have emailed me and asked me, hey, I need to register and I need to do this and that. If you figured that out and already did, that's great. If you didn't, I'm going to give you all the technical information you need so you can register tonight if you like. Okay. If you don't register tonight, that's fine. But I know that Dr. Tucker has some timelines and some dates that things are due. And so I want you to be able to feel like you're on pace for that. And you should be able to register relatively easily. Okay. So let me put a few things in the chat here, and then I'm going to go over them with you as well. So, all right. All right. So in the chat, I put a link to a YouTube, I'm sorry, to a Google folder for you. And this is kind of the one-stop shop. So what I would like you to do is hopefully click into that and see if you can't get in there. And it should be a screen that looks like this. Everybody see it? Anybody not able to get in or having problems? Okay. So a couple things in here. I have folders set up for all 3 cycles, but I want you to understand we're only going to be working out of cycle 1, but this home landing page has some overall resources for you. One resource that you really, really should open up and keep open on your desktop, or at least make sure you get to this, is this links to Cal APA supports. Okay. The first link takes you to the Pearson website, which if you click on it, this is where you register. Okay, so again, one-stop shop, you should be able to get there. The other piece is that this is the Google folder that I just sent you. So if you click in that, it'll take you to the Google folder with all the resources. So that's great. Feel free to link any or to bookmark any of these. And then I also provided you a link. Our parent program is Sacramento County Office of Ed, or what we call SCOE. And so SCOE has a website that they set up for Cal APA that we share resources with. But here's the problem. Their due dates and their other assignment dates are not the same as ours. So let me be very clear on this. You keep to the original timeline that Dr. Tucker gave you and the emails and the slide deck that I'm providing for you, because those are the correct due dates according to our program for ACSA. Okay. I just want to be really clear on that, because in this website, you'll see, I'll just show it to you very briefly. It's set up with all of SCOE's stuff, and you'll see these dates are not the same as ours. Okay. So if you go in here, please, 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 just use the Cal APA part as a resource. So you can navigate this website in one of 2 ways. One is you can click on these circles here, and you'll notice it says 1, 3, and 2, because we don't take these in order. We take 1, 3, and then 2. Okay. So just be mindful of that. But if you go up to here where it says cycle 1, it'll give you all the resources that SCOE has for cycle 1. Okay. So just be mindful of that. Please do not look at their slide deck. They have not updated it. It's last year's, and all the templates and versions are off. They're not the same. All right. So the resources are good, but this slide deck, use the one I'm providing for you tonight. It's in the folder. Okay. So this is your one-stop shop. I would bookmark this if I was you, because I think it's a valuable resource that you can always use. All right. So with that, if again, and on the second slide here, you will also see that this is the resources here. A couple things. Tonight, there's a couple documents I want you to be familiar with. So I'm going to go to cycle 1 because that's what we're doing. And in here, I provided you a PDF of the slide deck that I'm using. Please, you have access to that. You can follow along if you like. It's not necessary, but you can. And on top of it, the cool thing about this is it also has all the technical requirements that you need to do to sign up, and walks you through slide by slide on how to do that. So for those of you who haven't registered yet, you will be able to get step-by-step instructions for that. The other thing that you really need to pay attention to here is this Cal APA assessment guide. If you open it up, it has all the information here. Of course, I'm going to make it more simple for you, but this is the technical guidelines that you kind of need. And what I like about this is that it tells you for each step on each cycle what you need to do and then what you need to submit. Okay, so this is your friend. I would say that a lot of people ask me questions, and my first thing is, oh, you didn't read the guide, right? Like, and though I'm happy to answer them, sometimes it takes me, sometimes I'm really good and I can email you back within no time at all. And sometimes my schedule's really bad and I can't, right? And I want to be able to provide resources to you. So I would say if you're stuck, start with the guide or the slide deck. And then if you still can't, please don't suffer. Call me, text me, email me, whatever it needs, depending on your urgency. Okay. Does everybody have access to the guide? Okay. Is there anybody who can't get in? All right. Wonderful. The other thing that's in here on these is this video that one of my students did 2 years ago. For those of you who are not familiar with DataQuest, it's a great website for you to get data, and it's pretty easy to use. I'm not going to go over this, but this person did a video that I use as a resource. So for those of you who want to go beyond the dashboard or make meaning of some things, DataQuest is a great website, and this little video will show you how to use it. Okay. I don't know if you're familiar with DataQuest or not. I only provide you my slide decks in PDF form because God forbid you should steal them and go on a sideshow and start doing my work for me. So please understand there might be a few slides that are updated a little bit, but this is pretty much the same slide deck I'm using tonight. All right. Anything question-wise in the chat or anything else? Is there anybody who needs the resources still because they came in after we started? I'm just going to put them in there again. All right. So with that, I am going to go ahead and start the slide deck here, and we'll kind of go from there. So these are the resources. Keep that handy. So if you don't bookmark it tonight, you still have access to it. So that's fine. Sorry, somebody's texting me. I want to make sure it's not. Does anybody know Tina Batchelder? You guys know Tina? Anybody have her email? No? All right. She said she can't get in. So I apologize because I want to make sure I get everybody in. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen just for 1 second here.
Kayla said in the chat said that she's going to send her the link.
Perfect. Thank you so much. You guys are awesome.
Just so you know, I clicked on the link in the where we have all of our links, that one document.
Yeah.
And I was spinning for quite some time and trying to get in, and then I canceled that and used the link that you sent in the email, and then I got in.
Okay. Always use the email link because it's usually the most recent. Sometimes my Zoom will update or do weird things, and so I apologize for that, but hopefully she can get in. So all right, so these are the resources. Again, you probably want to bookmark that page. It might be helpful to have your Cal APA performance assessment overview. You can open up that PDF if you want. I'll refer to it, but you don't need to necessarily have it open, but it could be helpful. Okay. So first of all, let's start with the end in mind, and the due date is November 21st. If you look at the SCOE website that I gave you, the resource, it's going to say December 5th. It's not December 5th for you guys. Happy Thanksgiving. It's November 21st. Okay. So you get to celebrate and get a week off or a couple days off after your Cal APA is due. The reason we do this is it's not random. We have to time things out. But the way Cal APA works is if you get yours in by November 21st, you're guaranteed to get your results by December 12th. Okay. And so you'll get them that night of the 12th, and then you'll email me and say, yay, I passed, Ross, you're the best. Okay. And so with that, just understand, if you don't get it in by 11:59 on November 21st, then it won't be graded for another 4 weeks on top of that. So you're delaying your results by a huge amount. And if for some reason something didn't take, or you have to resubmit, that's going to take you much longer, and it's going to delay every process and make you stressed. Okay. Here's the other thing. It's due at 11:59 on November 21st. If you wait till that night to submit it, there'll be 5,000 other people across the state trying to jam everything in that same portal that same night. And it will take hours and spin for days and days. And you might lose your saved work. I would really, really, really be conscientious of this, and don't wait till the last second to turn it in. Okay. Any questions on due dates? Any questions on reporting scores or anything else? Anything in the chat I should know about?
So just to confirm, we can submit it before then. That's just the final date to submit it to get that result date.
So yes, here's what I would say. If you're ready to submit early, you can, and please do. If you want me to look at it, I will take a look at it. I can't. So there's a fine line between me giving you advice and cheating. And I will not go past that line. I just want you to understand that, right? So if you want me to take a look at your work, I'm happy to take a look at it and maybe make a few suggestions or ask you some questions. But here's the requirements. You must send it to me in a Google Doc and share it with me. And I will make comments through the Google Doc comment feature. If you send me PDFs, if you send me Word documents, I will not do that. It's too much work for me with too many people. Okay. It's much easier for me to look through and just make comment and say, hey, did you think about maybe doing this? Or I don't see this, and maybe you want to consider that. If I have to do that, go back and forth through 2 documents, 3 documents, I'm not going to do it. I just don't have the time and resources for it. Okay. But if you want feedback beforehand, remember, it takes me a couple days sometimes to do that. So if you wait till the last week or two or 3 days before it's due, the chance of you getting timely feedback is not very high. I just want you to understand that, because I do support for a couple programs. So this is not my only moonlight gig I have. So I need to be able to be available for all my students. Okay. So that's the due date. What do you need to pass? So if you get everything perfect, which never has happened, never even come close, you would get a score of 40. If you do that, then I will hand over the reins and you can do this training yourself, because I've never had a student get a 40, right? And it really is pie in the sky. However, the minimum passing is 15. And so I'm going to show you what that looks like on a rubric, but I just want you to understand, you don't have to be letter perfect in everything you do. And to be honest with you, if there's no technical difficulties, you're all college degree holders and many of you have advanced degrees. You should be able to do this if you write well and answer the question well and get easily the minimum score. Okay. So having said that, if you pay attention and you actually answer the questions well, you should be fine. And I'm going to give you resources to make sure you do that. But you should be fine. I've only had a couple people, maybe 2 or 3 people not pass because of the quality of their work, to be frank with you. Now, I'm not saying you should take it lightly either, right? Because it is a lot of work to do it, and you still have to do it correctly. But I want you to know, as long as you meet the technical requirements, you should be fine. The problem with Cal APA is if you don't meet the technical requirements, they don't even grade it. They just give you an error code and say redo. And then you have to pay again, and it's a hassle, and you have to wait for your results, and it's a hassle. Okay. So please pay attention, answer the question thoroughly. Suffering is never mandatory. If you have questions or need help or support, you reach out and we'll get you where you need to be. All right. So each of the Cal APA will go through these, what I call 4 banquet table cycles. The first part is investigate. So what you're really going to do there is you're going to give them context of your current system. It just so happens in Cal APA 1, You're going to investigate your current system of like your mission and vision for the school that you're at or that you're going to work with on this. And you're going to do some data tables, both qualitative and quantitative. And we'll talk about that in a bit. And then you'll plan, you'll act, and you'll reflect. And so again, this 4-table cycle is going to be concurrent in all of the Cal APAs. It's not going to change. Just what they're asking of you might look different. So again, part of me providing the slide deck for you in PDF form is so you can read through some of this too. So I'm not going to read everything, but what I want you to understand, the content overview, right? Like the big so what, is that what they really want you to do is be able to analyze data. As a school leader, it is imperative that you are able to look at data and balance it out both quantitatively and qualitatively. And so as a result of that, you're going to be looking at multiple years of data and trying to identify equity gaps in that data. Meaning, what group is not being served as well as others on your campus? It is not an implication of somebody trying to hurt kids, but there's a law of improvement science that says every system is perfectly designed to get what it gets. And somehow your system is getting an equity somewhere for some group. Okay. And you are charged with finding it. So within this cycle of investigate, plan, and act and reflect, you're going to analyze a couple sources of longitudinal, qualitative, and quantitative data. And you're going to do what we call equity gap analysis. And from that, you are going to come up with a clear and concise problem statement. Okay. That problem statement is going to be related to an equity issue. Maybe an example of that would be over the last 3 years, our English language learners graduation rates have been far less than any other group. Okay. And then we have to do a little investigating of why. And we'll talk about that. And again, I'm going to go over this part and then I'll stop for questions. But is there anything in the chat or anything we need to ask right now that's burning and itching? My wait time is weak. I'm just letting you know. All right. So after completing your equity gap analysis, you're going to look into the system and you're going to find through asking some questions and doing some maybe empathy type interviews, right? Balancing out the qualitative and quantitative, you're going to look for institutional or structural factors that may cause that inequity. All right. So you're going to look at the number data and then you're going to look at doing some interviews or finding out why that data might be what it is. All right. And then you're going to actually, as a result of that, look at like how that collective vision of your school and the measurement of data really is providing equity or not for students. And then again, it's going to ask you to really look at, as a leader, now that you have this equity gap that's been out there, what is it that you need to do, right, to develop a vision for equity as a school leader? Because that is your job to ensure that all students get what they need when they need it. And if that sounds like MTSS, you're darn right it is, because I'm an MTSS trainer and I'm proud of that, right? So I'm very big on that MTSS voice of making sure students get what they need when they need it. And then based on that investigation, you're going to look at potential strategies for equitable school improvement. It doesn't mean you're going to enact them. You're not being charged with implementing these strategies. You are going to look at what strategies should be and could be used. And you'll see, because there's templates you're going to fill out with all the questions that'll lead you to this, by the way. And then at the conclusion, you're going to write a reflection with some questions, right? That'll kind of identify the causal factors and strategies to address the gaps and provide equity-driven leadership, all right? And maybe hopefully develop some stakeholder support. Now, you're not doing this on your own. You're going to answer questions that are involved in a template, which I'll show you in a minute, okay? So even though this seems like a lot just as an overview, I want you to know we're going to simplify it and tell you what you need to do. And the templates are very, very specific questions that will guide you through this process. Questions so far? All right. if you haven't used the dashboard before, if you've never used, you have to base your problem of practice on one of the indicators, which I'll talk about, the state indicators. And so as a result of that, if you absolutely are struggling and you don't know how to use the dashboard, I can support you with that as well if you need. Most people by now should know how to use it in Mind Data. If not, there's people at your work who obviously do, but the California State Dashboard is very easy to navigate. So I'm not going to go over these vocabulary words, each one of them, but I think it's important because what happens a lot in the questions in the template, people will say things like, I don't understand what they're asking, or they'll answer the question and I'll say like, well, what's your academic problem statement, right? And so this will help you. So we use the common language, and that Cal APA uses this language as well. So though I'm not going to go over all of them, there are a few I am going to go over. One of them is this equity-driven leadership piece. And again, what they're really asking you to do is look at your data and conceptualize schools as, okay, we have this complex network of things that are interdependent, right? So if we want improvement of the systems, we have to A, see what our system is producing, and B, we have to find a way to call it out and interrupt it. Okay. So the equity-driven leadership piece, that spells it out well. The other piece too is you have to do what they call an equity gap analysis, which means if you look at 3 different groups in a similar indicator, you're looking for a pattern of a group that is historically being marginalized compared to other groups. So if you show your data for all these groups and you really are hell-bent on trying to work with one group and not another, but there's no equity gap there, then you're barking up the wrong tree. The data should set you free as to where you need to go. That's doing a data gap analysis, right? If you push and try to justify data that doesn't show there's a gap, it will be detrimental to your scoring, because you're going to have to do a data table that shows 3 years of data for all significant subgroups on your campus. And again, there's a template. This institutional factors, I'm not going to go over this, but there's a question that says, what institutional factors might be contributing to the equity gap that's taking place on your campus? Please go back and read this when you do that. You need to understand the institutional factors that are causing those. Those are systems that are in place that probably weren't meant to hurt kids. I don't think educators come and work for kids to try to hurt them. I don't think that's the goal. But sometimes our systems inadvertently marginalize students. And so we need to look at our data and see, wow, this group is not being served well by our current system. And as a result, what might be the cause of that? I'll give you an example. And Dr. Kedziora and I worked together before, so he'll probably shake his head and go, that sounds just like Ross. I know. But I'm a high school guy, right? And at high school, we have all these systems in place and rules. One rule is, how do you get into AP and honors classes? And when we were looking at student performance and A through G rates, or we were looking at graduation rates, and you're seeing certain groups are not performing, then we start looking at, why are these groups not performing? And at a school that I was working at, not the one I was principal of, but one that when Dr. Kedziora and I worked together in the same district, they were having inequitable outcomes of kids graduating and kids getting into AP and honors classes. There are institutional factors that allow that to happen in a district, right? Maybe kids who are English language learners never have an opportunity to get out of classes that'll get them into the next level. Maybe there's no A through G classes for certain students, right? Maybe certain groups, there's no alternative or credit recovery after school or transportation for those who are free and reduced lunch, right? And can't afford some of those things. So again, we really are going to harp on that institutional factor piece. And you are going to have to come up with the problem of practice, right? What's going on that's causing these things, which will be a statement. So again, it goes on and on and on. For those of you who have never done graduate work as far as doing data analysis, it's really important that you understand the difference between qualitative and quantitative data, because you're going to have to do both here. You're going to have to balance those out. So again, you're really going to look at the quantitative data there, which is the numerical data, which is what your system's producing through the dashboard. And then you're going to look at the qualitative to try to find out why that quantitative data is what it is. Again, I'm going to pause here and see if there's questions. There are never any bad questions, folks. Go ahead. I can't really see hands because I got things open, so speak up.
Can you give an example of qualitative data? Like what?
So yeah, let's say that you have chronic absenteeism going on at your school for a certain group of students. And let's just say it is your special education students, okay? I might take that data and I might go to the principal and say, hey, principal, in doing this Cal APA work, I've noticed that our students who are special education have, are really having a lot of issues when it comes to chronic absenteeism, right? Can you talk to me a little bit about why we think that might be happening or what your experience tells you? We may want to interview a few kids. We may want to interview some parents. You have to come up with 3 sources of qualitative data that will help you to explain why the quantitative data is what it is. And Devora, does that answer your question? I want to make sure I honor that. Okay. I think that's a thumbs up. I hope it's the right finger that went up.
You say 3 quantitative or 3 qualitative?
So you're going to have to do 3 years of quantitative data, and then you're going to have to do 3 pieces of qualitative data to find out why that might be getting what it's getting.
I have a question regarding the data. I'm looking on the California dashboard right now, and I think the most recent that they have is 2023. And then look back at, so if we do 2023, 2022, and 2021, when I click on 2021, it says that because of the pandemic, the law, the state suspending the reporting.
Yeah, you're going to have to go one back.
Oh, okay, so I do 2020.
It's the 3 consecutive most available sources. Yeah.
Got
So if
Thank you.
yeah, and because of and thank you for bringing that up, because that is a common problem, right? That the pandemic really did mess us up with data, and we found that most time data is pretty predictable in the state of California. It doesn't change too much, but the pandemic did change things. So just be mindful of that. You're going to have to do the 3 consecutive years of data that are available. And if that means those aren't consecutive year to year because there is a gap, then it's the last 3 that are available in the dashboard. So I see some people are already getting ahead of themselves and going into their data, and that's fine. But I just want you to understand, it'll all make sense when we talk about putting it together and I show you the templates. Okay. Any other questions though?
Yes, Ross. Oh, go ahead.
My question was, I spoke to a teacher. She had a coworker, an old coworker. She has a charter school, and she said that 2024 data should be out in October. Is that true?
So the unembargoed data, according to my boss at San Diego County Office of Ed, will not be coming out until mid to late November.
Oh, okay.
And so I wouldn't count on it. I would just use the old data.
So 2020, 2022, and 2023?
Whatever 3 years
Whatever's
are
available.
available, the last 3 years that are available for your site is what you should use.
Okay.
Okay.
There's only 2023, 2022, and 2019.
Yeah. So there is a gap. So
Yeah.
again, but I'm glad you brought that up. Was it Brenda who asked that question? Yeah, because if you wait for the data, it's not going to happen because first of all, the state lies. They never get their data out on time. And second of all, the unembargoed data means that we at county offices and districts get it first before it's released to the public and put in the dashboard. And sometimes that can take time. So don't wait. Your Cal APA deadlines will come and go, and you'll be standing at the curb waiting for the car. Okay.
I have a question, Ross.
Yeah, please.
Vanessa here. I'm an MTSS TOSA at the district office, and
Thank
I do
you for
have
your work.
I have access to a principal willing to support me at the elementary level and at the high school level, and also district level support. must I pick a school specifically, or can I do district level?
So yes, you must. You must. You must pick a school. So
Okay.
here's what I would say, right? You do need to pick a school because actually you're trying to figure out what that system specifically is. And the premise of the Cal APA is to make you be available to be not only a site leader or a district leader, but both, right? And
Yeah.
so they really want you to use the context of a site. The other reason that's important, Renessa, and I want you to keep this in mind, you don't have to use the same data and you don't have to use the same problem of practice, but Cal APA 3, you're going to have to run a community of practice around the equity gap.
Okay.
And so if you do this well and strategically, you might be able to use that gap to run your community of practice and kind of recycle some of the work. Okay. Make sense?
From using a school.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would definitely use a school.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And don't ask me if I prefer middle, high school, or elementary. I would say work with the school where it's most beneficial for you and that you have the greatest access. Okay.
Yes, I was going to ask you that next, or I wanted to, but I wasn't going to do it. Thank you, Ross.
Yeah, no worries. Any other questions? Great questions, by the way. I really appreciate these. These are helpful for everybody, I'm sure.
I have a question.
Okay.
Regarding the qualitative analysis or data, you said that we need three pieces. So that can be a questionnaire, an interview, and observations.
It can.
So in those questionnaires or interviews or observations, are we having a questionnaire? Are we distributing it to one person, to the whole school, to parents?
So you're not going to have to get that involved with it. So again, let me go back to my example of like, if it's special education, chronic absenteeism is the indicator that you're using, then I would probably talk to at least administrator, right? I would maybe talk to a case carrier or a program specialist if they're familiar with that on campus. You could even talk to the, you could talk with the data tech or the attendance tech. Or you could talk to a student and their family even, right? So it's really your call, but you don't have to do full-on surveys. I'm not asking you to survey 10, 20, 50 parents. You're not doing that. What you're really trying to do is maybe some empathy interview work to find out why the system is producing what it's doing. You're trying to get some of those causal factors, right? So if I was to let's say that one of you was my principal, I might say, hey, yeah, I'm doing the data, for Cal APA. And one of the things I noticed is that our special education students are really suffering when it comes to chronic absenteeism. Can you talk to me a little bit about maybe like, what are some of the reasons you've maybe seen this, or what is our school trying to do about it? And maybe what are some of those causes, right? So that's what you're trying to figure out. You don't have to survey a bunch of people or anything else. You have to have 3 sources, right? And most of those sources should be interviews and or some kind of, if you want to do a survey or questionnaire, you could, but you're not going to have time to survey 100 people and do all that. It's not what this is about. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep. And I think I see Jordan, your hand's up.
Yeah. So I have a question for the quantitative data. And maybe I'm getting ahead of myself because I've already started filling out the charts and stuff for our assignment that's due. But in the template that you gave us, there's only one chart available. Can we add a second chart, or should we only be doing that one?
So you can, but right. If you're able to do it with one, then I would keep it simple, because at the end of the day, what you're really doing is you're picking an indicator and looking at 3 years of data, right?
Okay.
And so the more simple you make that, the easier it is. So basically what you're doing is, and if I was you, I would do this a little bit backwards. You might even want to ask your principal or assistant principal or site administrator to say, hey, look, I got to do Cal APA and I got to do an equity gap, and it's got to be based on one of the state indicators. Is there anyone that we're really suffering on? And then start your data to look there. Okay.
Right.
But
but what I was kind of wondering is, like, I'm doing chronic absenteeism, and I want to talk about foster youth as my focus group.
Is that what the data shows?
Well, our number of foster students has gone up 1,500% in the last 3 years. And the chronic absenteeism rate has gone up like 500%.
Okay,
And no
so-
one is doing anything about it.
Okay, so that's fine. So just do chronic absenteeism for all subgroups. That's all.
Oh,
and
yeah,
the
that's
space
what
for all
that's what I
subgroups.
put in the first chart. But
I'll
then
show
I
you the
don't
charts and we'll
necessarily.
go through it, Jordan. You'll see. It's going to
Okay.
work out perfect for you,
Okay.
right? Pending that there's no other group that has more than 500% increase. I don't know, but we'll see. I doubt it. And that's a common thing, right? When it comes to graduation rates, when it comes to chronic absenteeism, when it comes to suspension, unfortunately, our foster youth have been the most underserved group in many cases, right? And a lot of those kids are duplicated because they meet special education needs, and they also might be of Hispanic, African-American, Asian, white, right? A different subgroup as well. So we'll talk about that. All right, and structural factors, again, they're going to ask you about that. So that's the vocabulary piece. Let me press on, and then we'll go from there, okay? So in the investigate part, you're going to have to pull out your school or district that you're doing, the mission and vision, and or whatever goals. If you're not familiar with these goals, every year by law, the school needs to provide what's called a ACSA, which is their site plan. So the goals are usually in there. And then there's also other documents that the districts usually have to produce. Martin Rex, can you help me out? What's that yearly report they have to do? That's the 1-page or 2-page thing. Do you remember what that's called?
No.
Well, your school site.
You talking about the report card?
Yeah, it's a report card, but it's got a specific name or whatever. But
The
yeah,
SARC.
your SARC. Thank you. Thanks, Scott. It escaped me. You can tell I've been off site for 9 years now and at a county office. So your SARC report will usually include those goals. But if I was you, I would look at the mission, vision, and the goals. If you can't find whatever your district or school specific goals are, then I would ask the administrator. Ask your school site principal or administrator. So you're going to look at those. You're going to select one of the California indicators, right? And then you're going to look at your qualitative and quantitative data. You're going to make sure that you do an analysis, right? And then for step 2, you're going to identify potential contributing factors, and you're going to develop a problem statement, okay? And in that problem statement, you're going to define a specific area of educational need related to the equity gap for that student group, okay? And again, I'll show you the questions. I don't want you to get caught up in the verbiage because the templates will set you free in a minute. For part 3, the act, you're going to use that problem statement and educational need for your students, and you're going to develop some potential strategies for that. You're not going to enact them, right? You're going to look at some research about what are some strategies that might be used to support foster youth in coming to school more regularly, right? And there always is research out there. And so you're going to do that. So, and then again, looking at whatever feedback you need in order to get that. And then 4 is just the reflection. I'm going to be frank with you guys here. 4 is the easiest part, yet we have the lowest scores. I'm not really sure. I think it's attrition. I think people get tired and they don't want to, they're trying to finish it. But I'm going to tell you, a lot of people leave a lot of points on the table in this reflection. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to self-analyze and say, how did I do in conducting this equity gap? What did I learn from this, right? What areas do I still need to get better at? And so again, this is a real opportunity for you to be honest with yourself and really self-evaluate as to what I need to do to get better as a school leader when it comes to looking at data, doing empathy interviews to find out causes, doing some research into what might be some potential remedies to whatever challenges we're having. All right, so let's make sense of this. I provided rubrics for you. And as you can see, each of these are worth 5 points. So that's where you're going to get your 40, right? Each rubric is a 5-point scale. And what we're really looking at is if you get a minimum of 3 on all of them, you pass, right? And so our goal is always to get you beyond to a 3 or beyond. And so having said that, you're going to see later on, I'm going to provide you with what a 3 looks like. Kind of, so you have at least a baseline for that. But these are the rubrics. This is right out of that guide that I provided for you, by the way. This is not my work. This is cut and pasted directly from the guide. Okay. But I like it how they basically give them in questions here. So again, keeping in mind, there's possible 40 on the table, you need 15 to pass. Okay. So let me do this before we move on. Well, no, actually I'll do this. So key points from the rubric, what you're really looking for is patterns, right? Why is some of these things happening? Why is our data looking like it is? What are the causal factors? Really, what is your focus area? Are you clear about why this is happening and what group? And then looking at the relationships and then balancing out the data, okay? So I'm not going to go over all this, but what I want you to understand is that this is what you need to do, right? So when people say, Ross, what do I need to do to get credit or turn it in? You're going to basically do all this work in a template, which I'll show you in just a minute, right? Which is going to guide you through these processes, okay? And so with that, these are the state indicators. I want you to understand that doing chronic absenteeism at the secondary level is difficult in some cases, but because the reasons are great, but suspension rates, EL progress is a big one. Remember, that's EL progress in one of the state indicators. So just remember that, right? So your ELs is a significant subgroup in a lot of our schools in Southern California. Could be graduation rate, academics performance, which is math or English language arts. Don't try to talk to me about science or history. I'm a former history teacher. I've been marginalized my whole life. Why would they stop now? Okay. So math and English language arts are the 2 areas of CASP that count in the dashboard. And so you might be looking at a subgroup performing specifically low in one of those. And that might be where your biggest equity gap is. Please don't combine. In other words, your problem statement might be, our Hispanic males are being outperformed in English language arts as compared to all other significant subgroups. Okay. We have to be specific. I don't want to hear mathematics and English language arts. Pick the one with the biggest gap. You don't need to do this for multiple indicators. You can do it on your own for multiple indicators to find that out. But if you put 5 or 6 different tables down there because you want to experiment and try to turn that into Cal APA, it's not good. Okay, so I know somebody said, can we alter the table or make more? I would suggest you don't. You could technically, but I wouldn't. I would do your analysis, fill out the data table, and let it speak for the gap. This is also a link to the dashboard. Even though it's 2019, it still will get you the same thing.
Ross, can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
About EL progress?
Mhm.
Did you say if I'm looking at EL progress as an indicator, like I wrote that look at EL progress only in one of the state indicators, but EL progress is an indicator?
No. We want to use them as, so your EL subgroup is going to be listed as a significant subgroup, right? And so I would look at that with the EL as a subgroup. Now, EL progress is on the dashboard now.
Yeah.
Right? But here's my thing. You can't really say that's an equity gap in EL progress because all those kids are EL, right? So what I'm saying is EL would be less of the qualifier and more of the subgroup, if that makes sense.
Okay, yes, I think I understand. So I get what you mean about EL. That's that whole population under that indicator now. But if I'm looking under math performance, for example, I will find that EL progress or EL students are an actual subgroup under like math performance.
Indeed.
Okay.
And it's getting more complicated. I'm just going to let you know because the newest thing on the dashboard now is going to be LTELs, right? There's going to be big penalties now for people who are not reclassifying. So it's going to get more complex. You guys got in just in time, I would say. But yes, good question. Thank you for asking that. Actually, so again, step one, it's going to ask you based on your data to pick an indicator, right? So look at your data, pick an indicator, and see if there's the equity gap. I would be very mindful of any bias you have. I'm going to give you an example, and I had a student that I worked with last year, and she was very active in her school and district African American Success Committee. And she wanted to do something that had to do with African American students. But at her particular school, there was 2 or 3 subgroups that were performing far less rates than her African American students. And so the data what led her to trying to do something that went against it, right? She had a bias that she had to work with African Americans, and that wasn't the biggest need at her school. When she placed her data table down there, it was obvious that that wasn't the #1 group that needed help. That wasn't the biggest equity gap. And so she got no points for that, which meant her causal part was all problematic, right? And so understand the data needs to speak for where your equity gap is. Okay. I see a hand up. Yes, maybe questions?
Hi. Yeah. I'm thinking about what you said about science. My only job at Compton is to, oversee their science programming. And they will be on the dashboard, but I do know that the data is very sparse. Like this on the dashboard this year, but it won't have colors, and it'll have colors next year. But I'm kind of going with the theme of what you're saying, and it's about having robust data.
Yeah.
And maybe like I shouldn't hang my dreams and my work on this report, and I should just get it done.
So here's what I would tell you. This program is designed to make you the best administrator, and that means science administrator, coordinator, principal, superintendent, state superintendent, king of the world, queen of the universe, right? Whatever it is. So having said that, I was one of those people that used to get yelled at by math, teachers when they say everyone's a math person. Well, in this, everyone is a math and English language arts person. So I don't want you to lose your passion for it, but I'm going to tell you that this indicators all of the academic progress that is measured on the dashboard, which will get you in accountability issues, is going to be math and language arts. Okay. So just be aware of that. I don't want to marginalize what you teach because trust me, I know what that feels like. But we're all literacy teachers and we're all math teachers to some degree, I'd suppose, right? So yeah, I would definitely don't try to push that. I wouldn't. So yeah. Let me do this. I'm gonna, just because I think I need to lower some of your affect, I'm gonna take you back to the resources here. And in this part of the resources, I'm gonna show you what the templates look like, even though they're kind of in there. So the templates are this, and you'll see, for those of you who haven't seen this, let me make this bigger for those who have woeful eyes like me. It's gonna ask you what academic indicator you're gonna look at. So in here, first of all, you make copies of these. Don't ruin my templates or you're a bad person. All right. So you're going to make a copy of this, and then you're going to clearly state which indicator it is. Then you're going to put the data for all students, and then you're going to look at every significant subgroup on your campus and do that. So let's say I was using mathematics. I would fill this out for mathematics and let the data speak where my biggest equity gap would be. And if I don't see a significant one, I might move on to English language arts. I might move on to chronic absenteeism. But what I would do is I would always start with something that you're closest to. Right? So if you're a math teacher, you might want to look at math first, right? Because you may have a better understanding of that. If if you're at a school that has a population of a lot of students with disabilities or a lot of SED students, you might want to look at that. All right. I'm going to say something here that gets complex for people, and it's not my goal to confuse you, but I want you to understand that there's also data pieces that will show you that a lot of our kids are duplicated. Meaning you could be in special ed and also be African American. You could be EL and also be in special ed, right? And so just understand, the more simple you keep it and don't worry about the duplications, just look at the things that are right, going to show you there's a gap, the better off you're going to be. Okay. I think I see a hand up. Is that you, Devora?
Yes. Okay, can I ask, so, like, given that we have like a lot of subs right now, can I pull qualitative data around the amount of subs that I have at my site? Or
As
is that
what is that going to, I'm
in,
not going to say no, but I would need to know what it reveals, right?
to impact, say, special ed students, because that's where most of my subs are,
Sure,
or my
John
English
Hattie's work, yeah. John Hattie's
ELA.
work talks about impact size, right? And so if the teacher is the number one factor whether students learn or not, and you have subs in most of your special education classes, that could be a causal factor indeed. So yes, right?
But is that qualitative data?
It would support your, if it supports your quantity, yeah, then yes, right? It just has to support and balance out. So again, you're trying to ask questions that justify why your data is what it is when you do the first part. Okay. You'll see it makes sense to you, but if we need to talk about something specific to your site, I'm happy to do it, but I want to do it afterwards because I want to keep this broad for now. So for time's sake, but yeah. Again, I really want you to understand, while you may think a particular need is evident, it may not be. So it's not based on what you think, it's based on what the numbers tell you, right? And again, just don't allow preconceived notions or understandings or bias, okay? Because that can creep in. You have to turn some things into dashboard. I'm not sure what that looks like for two reasons. I don't have access to dashboard, and I'm not sure what the assignments look like, but I know that they are completely in concurrence with Cal APA. And so somebody asked me through an email, should I do the work in dashboard before I do it in Cal APA? And my answer is, I'm not sure. I'd have to ask Dr. Tooker about that. But what I would say is everything you're doing here in dashboard will lead you to the same road and support your work in Cal APA. Does that make sense? So whatever assignments you have, if the school, do you guys have a profile school analysis that you have to do? Yes?
It says we have to do the data analysis, the first part of the first Cal APA.
Yeah.
But I didn't know there wasn't any template or anything, so I wasn't sure what they want us to actually put there.
Okay. So again, these are what they used to use, right? And so I put it in here, but what I want, my point in putting it in here is to let you know, if you're able to just turn in part 1 of Cal APA as your assignment for that, then great. But I know in the past they've used worksheets that were supposed to help you in planning for the Cal APA before you maybe fill out the templates, right? So again, these are here. I don't know what has to be done in dashboard because I don't have access or I don't get to see it. But I want you to know any assignments that you're going to have to turn in dashboard for Cal APA are going to be either parallel or the templates themselves. Okay. And I don't know, Dr. Kedzora, I don't know if you have any insight into those assignments at all, or you get to see them, but I don't get to see them. So.
Yeah, how do we find out that? Because my assumption was just to start filling out the Cal Apple One template you provided, and then I guess submit that to the dashboard. Because I did not see this.
I'm not sure, but let me ask Dr. Tooker about that, because again, I know in the past we've used these and they wanted these, but it would make better sense for you to turn in your Cal APA because, you know, now
Right, that's
these
what I thought.
can be helpful thought organizers before you sit down and start doing some of your Cal APA, right? So again, I don't know, but to me, it makes sense to just work in the Cal APA templates because you can use them as draft form and always fix and iterate. But I'm not real sure what's in dashboard. So you guys have access to whatever assignments are in there or whatever it asks you for. So unless it asks you for a specific worksheet or template, then I would turn in the Cal APA, right? But I will get with Dr. Tooker and let her know there's some confusion with that and to reach out. So
I think one of the confusions also was because on dashboard, it said that we had to have our data uploaded. And yet it also says it's not due on another document. It says it's not due till the 17th. So there's also a confusion there as well.
yeah, and I apologize for that. Unfortunately, I don't have access to any of the stuff that's due in dashboard or beyond Cal APA, right? Like I'm just the online learning and Cal APA guy. You know, I feel like so,
I
but
think
they- they-
Ross,
Mhm.
Ross, I think some of the confusion is on the document that the students were given.
Mhm.
Dr. Tooker had said in the orientation that the blue was you know, Ross Godfrey,
Mhm.
and the orange was Dr. Tooker, and when it was white, it was the instructor.
Okay.
So when they talked about this on their assignment that they have,
Mhm.
it says bring the data to class on the 10th, and then it says on the 17th complete the data analysis.
Okay.
But you know what you're saying is then which you know is this the template they use? But I think that unless if there's not a template there, which I don't know if there is, they just submit their and it tells them to me it tells you exactly.
And also too, because on the 24th, it says Cal APA Cycle 1, Step 2, which isn't that another template?
It's the second template. So if
Right.
it sounds like she's doing templates, not the worksheets, but I know SCOE uses the worksheets. And so in the past we have too. But that's what I love about Dr. Tooker. She does not just do what they do. She does what's best for students, right? So I'll between Dr. Kedzorian and myself, we'll clarify that for you, I assure you. So but at any rate, these what they used to. So I'm not going to go too much into it, but as you can see, this would be a great worksheet to use. You're free to use something or iteration of it if you need to organize your thoughts for that. And again, they've used it before. And I'm not being prescriptive or saying you have to use this. I don't even have the template for it. I'm just showing you that this is what in the past students have used. And what's nice about it is it kind of lets you look at some of these areas of, you know, and patterns and trends. Now, you may not need it, but it's there if you need it. Again, so here's the templates for investigate for just part 1. And what you'll notice is this first part, you're just going to talk about the vision, mission, and goals of your school. Okay. And they have to go between these two brackets here. Let me be very clear about that. Okay. Then after you investigate that, you're going to go ahead and do your data. Oops, sorry about that. You're going to do your data dive, and you need to stay within this template here. Do not forget above it, it says California State Indicator. If you're using mathematics, you need to say mathematics. If you're using English language arts, if you're using chronic absenteeism, if you're using suspension rates, you need to put it up there. Otherwise, they're not going to know. Okay.
Sorry, you said in the brackets, that's where we start typing, correct?
Yes.
Only in the brackets.
In the brackets and in the table. Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, I also want to just be really clear. Up here at the top, it says, respond to the prompts no more than 5 pages, exclusive of the data tables. So if you have a big data table here and your qualitative data table, because you're going to put a lot of a narrative piece in here, they do not count towards the 5 pages in Cal APA 1. Let me say that again. They do not. The data tables for part 2 here and part 3 do not count towards the 5 pages of the Cal APA on this first section. Okay. If you go more than 5 pages, they stop grading it on the others. But here, so let's say that it works out like between your part 2 and part 3, those are 1.5 pages. You can go more than 5 pages total, right? But just make an estimate and say, oh, well, this is about a page and this is about a page, so I can turn in 7, right? Because it's all going to be on the same template, but your narrative cannot be more than 5 pages, right? Beyond the tables don't count, I guess is what I'm saying. Questions?
Is the narrative a separate document or
No, the narratives are right here. These are the questions.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything you turn in for Cal APA is on these templates. If they're not in the template, you don't get credit. Do not alter these templates. Do not manipulate them. Just write within the brackets. Download them, write within the brackets. And if you need support or help, send them to me in Google Docs and I will make comments. Okay?
A question about the table.
Yes.
If we don't have a significant student population and there's no data, for example, for Pacific Islanders, should we delete the row or write like no data?
NA. Just
NA.
NA. Yeah.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Yep. And please understand there's going to be a lot of these that some of you may not have, and that's okay. Right? So
Can we color code the table?
can you color code it? You could,
Yes.
I guess, but I don't think they want it color coded, but if it helps you and then I would undo it afterwards. I mean, part of the deal is that whoever's grading it is supposed to look at your data. So, I mean, that's up to you. I've never had anybody do it turn it in that way. I've had people highlight it so they can make clear in their own minds, but I don't know if you should. I don't think they're going to fail you because of it, but I don't know.
Thank you. I will make sure to undo it before I submit it. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. If it helps you to organize, please do, right? Just undo it before, but if it helps, great. So, all right, I think we had Kayla and then Jordan.
Hi there. Okay, so for tonight on the dashboard, it said, and I posted it on the chat, like what exactly was due for us on the dashboard this evening. So for me in particular, like I have my 3 years of data. The other piece that I was kind of struggling with was the data analysis. So just so I know that I'm clear, I'm basically going to utilize your template to provide the analysis. So that's like step 1, like the investigate part. Like I'm just trying to be sure because there was no template provided when it came to that analysis. So I just want to make sure that whatever I submit, and we can only submit one thing, right? We can't have multiple submissions. So I can't do like my data and then the analysis. So I just want to make sure that whatever I submit is actually what is needed, what's due on the dashboard.
So what I can tell you is this, I'm happy to call and or email Dr. Tooker tonight and let her know there's some confusion. Because I can't answer that for you, unfortunately, because I'm not sure what she wants in dashboard.
Okay. No, I
So-
appreciate that. Thank you. I
Yeah.
think that's
And
where like
yeah.
I'm finding the confusion is just,
Sure.
well, what were we supposed to
Sure.
submit tonight? And then hearing you tonight, like there's a lot of things that are connecting, right? So I just want to make sure whatever I submit obviously is very purposeful, especially with the Cal APA. Like I said, a lot of things are connecting right now. So I just want to make sure that whatever I submit is exactly what is needed.
Indeed. But let me tell Dr. Tooker there's some confusion on that and she can clarify it. But I just don't want to tell you the wrong thing because I don't get to see it on the other end, right? And so, but I will assure you this, if you do Cal APA step 1, it is the data analysis, right? It is just that. But again, I don't know if that's both if we're doing both the qualitative and quantitative or just doing one or the other, right? Like, I don't know what she wants specifically on that, but I will let her know there's confusion to clarify.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And Jordan, I see your hands raised.
Yeah, so I have a question about section 1, the school vision, mission, and goals. On there, it says document your findings. Does that mean literally just copy and paste it, or are you supposed to write something else there as well?
No, so basically, give me a little grace and it'll unfold. I'm going to show you what they mean by that because I have these
You keep
extended
getting
templates.
ahead.
Yeah, that's okay, but it's a great question. Hold me accountable for that, please. Okay.
Okay.
But I will address it. I promise you. I promise. Because I have like a cheat sheet for you for that. That'll ask you questions that will lead you to what you should actually write. Like they're sub questions of the question, if that makes sense. So this is what the templates look like. You fill them out. Again, they don't look like much, but once you answer each question thoroughly, they do wind up being pretty robust. Okay. I would also tell you, be careful. Do not use AI. Do not copy anybody else's work. They use AI themselves, and we've had these kicked back before. So I would be careful. Do not make sure you're writing these originally because you may have AI, but so do they, right? Like it's one of those. So be mindful of that. They do run them through multiple checkers, and if they do run them back, they'll kick them back to you and you're gonna have to repay and resubmit. So just be careful with that. I'm not an expert in AI. I just use it to write letters of rec. That's all I use it for, but just be mindful. So this is directly from the assessment guide. But what I like about this is that it'll tell you what you need to do. So template 1, you're going to have for this, you're going to have to investigate the mission, vision, and goals at your school. And template item 2, you're going to have to do the 6 indicators and so forth. This part here over on the right is what you have to submit. So I've put this in the slide deck for you to see. So for each one of the sections, you have this, right? So for investigate, you fill out the template and you turn it in. There's no tricks or anything else. And this is for each part. So item 3 and item 4. And again, data tables, written narrative, collection of equity analysis, right? And again, no more than 5 pages, exclusive of data tables. All right. So again, I'm not going to read these for you. This is right out of the guide, but I want you to understand that it's really simple what you need to turn in, right? And basically in Cal APA 1, it's all templates. This seems simple, and some people say, Ross, why are we doing this? Because in Cal APA 3 and 2, you're going to have to turn in videos, and you're going to have to turn in evidence pieces and artifacts. So it gets a little bit more complex on what you need to turn in. But on Cal APA 1, you don't need to do any of that. It's just all template. This is the rubric, and what I provided for you in this slide deck was here's what a minimum level, like a level 3 looks like. So again, keeping in mind, if you got 3s on everything across the board, you'd get a score of 15 and pass. Okay. I don't want you to, I want you to do better, but this is the mid-range on each one of them. And so again, I've just pulled out what the level 3 of each of the rubrics, so you can kind of see what they're looking for, and maybe use it as a self-guide when before you turn things in, or before you have me take a look if you need help.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
Is it just me, or is everybody else understanding that this cycle 1, step 1 is supposed to be due on the 17th? So next week. Is it everybody else seeing that, or is that just
That's what I understand. That's how I'm taking it for right now.
And I don't think it should be too, Christina, I think that was you who said that. I don't think this should be too much of a challenge to do your initial data table, right? It might take some time to do some empathy work or find out the cause, right? That might take a little bit longer, but at the end of the day, do the best you can with it. And even if it's not the best work, if you send it to me and it still needs refinement, then we can do that. I don't want you to not get your assignment credit, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, passing the Cal APA is what we're after. So I apologize for the robust timelines. I don't get to make that do, right? Like I was just given dates and said, Ross, present. So, but having said that, if that's what it says it's due, then yes, but you should be set up to turn in the first part, and it shouldn't take that long.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, I wouldn't dilly-dally on it, right? Like I would start looking at the dashboard and get your ideas pretty quick. But yeah.
Thank
The other thing I've done for you is I provided a checklist before you finish everything. So again, you have access to this, so you can say, okay, on step 1, did I do these things? Right? Here's the rubrics. Here's some check boxes, kind of a mental checklist for you to make sure that you have everything taken care of. And again, this slide deck is part for the presentation tonight, but also the most part, it's to be a resource for you to guide you as you do your work. So I would really use this resource as you actually do your Cal APA work. All right, so that's one. The second step is the plan part. And again, here's what the template looks like. The questions are there, you'll see. Maximum 5 pages. So please make sure no more than 5 pages. You answer your questions between the brackets, right? And remember, you're going to have a problem statement there. And remember, there's definitions of what a problem statement is in the vocabulary that I provided for you. So you're going to take that qualitative and quantitative data, and you're going to look for what is that problem of practice as a result of that problem statement. And you're also going to have to look at up here, what are some of the contributing factors, right? And how much of what of those factors are including the institutional and or structural pieces, right? Like, why are those happening? What's going on at that school that makes that happen? I will say, number 3, it says cite research related to your findings. You do need to cite one or two things of research, right? Saying something about, let's say you chose chronic absenteeism, right? Or let's say you chose, even better, let's say you chose EL, students performing in English language arts. You might want to look at, what does the research say about students who are sheltered and don't have access to full instruction throughout the day, as opposed to those who have a mix, or those who have designated EL supports, right? And so again, you are going to pull out some research. Remember, you can't write War and Peace and you can't write a research paper here, because you only get 5 pages total for that. But you do need to cite one or two pieces of research saying, according to such and such, right? According to Dr. Kedziora on such and such date, you should have this, or that, right? So please understand that they're looking for some research. And then again, looking at that on question 4, they're saying, what are some areas of educational need to ensure that equity gap is lessened, right? So I know Devorah made the statement about a lot of subs in special ed. So maybe in order to address that need, they really need to look at a way to hire high quality teachers, right, in special education that are permanent, right? That might be something that would be good practice. So the template is pretty self-explanatory, especially since I've given you the vocabulary and some of the resources for that.
Yeah.
Question or no? Okay. Again, here's what you need to do, and here's the evidence to submit. And again, it's just one written narrative using the template. The rubric, here's step 2, the rubric. This is 3 level, right? Again, I'm giving you kind of the mid-level so you can see what that might look like as far as the rubrics go. And I've washed, worn, and repeated. The checklist is here for you as well, so you can do a mental checklist on this, right? 3 is ACT, and in ACT, it's a smaller template. So you're gonna, obviously you have 5 pages to answer these. So you're gonna go deeper with this. Okay, so you're actually gonna spend more time with step 3 and and go a little deeper with these, right? And you're gonna look at, describe potential strategies you identified, right? To kind of combat why these things are happening. Explain how your strategies address the equity gap specifically. And then you're going to have to look at the potential strategies for improvement and how they take into account potential the contributing factors, right? So whatever the cause is, how is what you're proposing to remedy it really going to address some of those? And some things are webs of belief, and some of things are more technical, right? I think we have to look at, how do we balance out the technical and the adaptive, right? And so as a leader, we always have to ask that. And then what targeted feedback you received or proposed strategy from your supervisor or boss. So you do need to seek some clarity for that. So if you have chronic absenteeism for special ed, you might want to talk to your principal or your assistant principal and find out, like, hey, in trying to solve this, what are some areas that I might want to look at? And if you do your data analysis well, that should come out as well. And then describe steps you would take to create a school level or community education or partner buy-in. So how do we get buy-in? How do we use our leadership voice to make sure that people support what we're doing? Again, you turn in the template. That's all given for you. And the level 3 rubric is provided for you as well. Okay. Checklist is available. Again, these questions are great guiding questions here that might help you. So feel free to use those as needed. And then again, Cal APA step 4 is this narrative reflection. And again, on this one, you have 5 pages, no more than 5. Doesn't mean they have to be 5, by the way. It can't be more than, right? And if you have 3.5 to 4, it's probably adequate in a lot of ways. I want you to understand that. Don't feel you have to fill it up. And there's also redundancy in some of these questions, by the way. So I get a lot of people saying, hey, Ross, are they asking me the same thing? And in some cases, it's a very similar thing they're asking you. Absolutely. So just be aware of that. If it feels redundant, there is some redundancies in these questions. But basically, there are 4 questions. So you can probably answer these a little bit more in depth. Again, don't sleep on these questions, because when people do, they don't score well. And again, this is one of those areas where traditionally we've left points on the table unnecessarily. Again, turn in the template. No formulas, postulates, or theorems to do, right? It's pretty straightforward. Rubric level 3, and then here's your checklist. All right, so a couple things before we get into the technical. I want to go back to our Cal APA site here. So first of all, the templates are here. And then you're going to see this thing called Cycle 1 Extended Templates. Everybody say thank you, Ross, and our friends at SCOE, because we've filled out these templates for you. We call them expanded templates with questions and guiding areas for you. Okay. So again, it'll say specifically, right, on this is the reflect one. It'll give you some insight into some of these things that you should answer. Okay. So let me show you on the first one. Obviously it doesn't give you a data table, but it gives you questions here on what you should do. So I know, I think Jordan or you asked me about, like, specifically, should we just list the mission and vision and the goals? Well, you're going to do that in narrative form and maybe talk about how the vision and mission came to be, right? And what the buy-in is. And does that live on that campus? Is that something that people live by? One of the things they're going to ask you to reconcile is the vision and mission playing out based on your data? And if you have this vision and mission that all students will succeed, and let's face it, most of them are the same, right? At the high school level, it's all students will be college and career ready, happy, productive, lifelong learners, productive members of society. And I don't mean to minimalize, right? But what I'm saying is, does your data show that all students are doing that? And if not, then you got to reconcile that. Or maybe they have a mission and vision and goals, but maybe it's not even apparent that they're using them or that anybody even knows them. If you're at a school that does, my school and district in Val Verde, where I came from as a principal, everything had to be transparent. Lord knows teachers had to have 100 posters on the wall, and they had to have the mission and vision. They had to have this and that, right? But we lived by it, and that's kind of how we went about doing things. So students, adults, parents, WASC, everybody knew what our vision, mission, and goals were. It was very transparent. And there was a process that I think most people could name as to how we came to those goals and how we came to that mission and vision. if that's the case, great, talk about it. If it's not, then don't. Okay. But this will give you some information on that and kind of clarify some things for you as far as if you think you're not writing enough or too much. I would say be very, very thorough, but don't drone on and on and on and on, right? Remember, you have to get this in 5 pages. So there's these for each one of them. What I like about this too is that you're going to be able to, for your qualitative, you're going to be able to see that they're going to give you some insight into what that might look like, right? Make sure you thoroughly explain the data gathered, how many people you interview, types of responses, and who you talk to, and etc. Okay. So basically, this is a great cheat sheet for you. It's a great resource, and you have access to that. Again, this is under what we call extended templates. Okay. So again, if you go to the Cal APA Google folder that I set up for you, you go to Cycle 1 templates, and then there's this folder up here called extended templates. Questions on that? Okay, so the last part of the slideshow here is really a resource for you on how to register. You'll notice, again, here's the due date. They do screen for originality, so be mindful of that. And remember that not one person is going to read this, probably multiple people might read it. So just be aware of that. And the assessors are people like me and my colleagues who have done this for a while that are graders. Now, I'm not grading currently, so I'll let you know that I'm not going to be grading your work. But what I would say is this. As a grader, everybody has bias. And so I'm going to ask you not to identify your school or district at all in your work. Let me say that again. To avoid any bias or anybody saying, oh, I know that person there, or I know that school, they're full of you know what, or I don't want anybody going back and looking and checking your data. It's not necessary. So as a result of that, you do not identify your school. As a matter of fact, I would even say at school X, the mission, vision, and such is this, okay? Or at elementary school X or elementary school ABC. I'll be careful, there is an ABC district in California, so don't say district ABC. Are we clear on that? Do not identify your school or district. It is not necessary. It's not something that you should do. I want to avoid any type of implicit bias or anything else by graders or anybody saying or thinking they have knowledge of your district from their level. It's not necessary. It's not their job to investigate further. It's their job to grade what you've done.
Ross, should we specify if our focus school is a charter school?
Sure, that's fine. Yeah, I think that would be great insight, right? I would want to know because your population is going to probably be a little bit smaller, and maybe as a result of that, you might serve a different population or community, right? If it's a parochial school or a charter, and remember now, charters are held accountable to the dashboard too, like everybody else now. So this is the first year that they actually qualified for differentiated assistance. So we love our charters, right? Charters are part of the educational world too. And so feel free, but just make sure you have the 3 years of data. That's what I would tell you. And even if you don't have it in the dashboard, you could probably mine the similar data, right? So this is kind of just to let you know on Cal APA, this is just the chart that is the scoring rubric, right? So on Cal APA 1, it's 15, and then on 2 and 3, the scores are 14, but there's only 35 total points to be had, right? So it's a little bit different game. But just concentrate on Cal APA 1 right now. There's a 3-week turnaround. So if you turn it in on time, you'll get your results back like that date chart says, and then you'll get an individual score report. What's really important, they'll give you a score report with a rubric, but what's really important is that you'll get a score for each, but you'll see your overall score and it'll say pass, right? That's the most important part. I have it highlighted later on, and I've gotten it about 5 or 10 emails already about this. When it asks what program you're in, you select Sacramento County Office of Education. Let me say that again. Write it down, highlight it. Do whatever you need to do. Put a sticky note on your dog or cat. You must select Sacramento County Office of Ed because they are the verifiers of the credential, and it's going to delay things at the end if you do not. So when it says what program or university, pick Sacramento County Office of Ed. The second part too is it's going to ask you about units or credits. We do not issue units and credits at the ACSA program. And so you could probably select anything. I think I picked the one that's 7 to 16 for the first one because you're only really taking 1 or 2 classes by the time it's due. It really doesn't matter. That's more of a survey thing, right? So just to ease your mind, put 7 to 16 credits or whatever that one is. But when it comes to where the results go, you got to put SCOE, Sacramento County Office of Ed.
But it's okay. I put 0 because I knew they had told us.
Yeah, they're not going to look. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, because technically we don't give credits at all. But I'm just saying, don't stress over that. Whatever you put is survey, but whatever results is not. It's important. Okay.
So
The
are we
other
going to
stuff is
be able to,
self-explanatory. I'm sorry?
can you go back and change that? Because I already registered and it had said a California, I think one of the things they said was like a California approved credential lien
I think you
program or
can,
something.
but I'm not
So-
sure. So I would try, Jamie, and if you can't, just remind me and Dr. Tooker, because she's going to have to look up your results or you're going to have to send them to her. It's not the end of the world if you don't, but it's an inconvenience, right?
Gotcha.
So you're not doomed. But just remember, if you can't change it, you got to keep us informed of that so we know how to get your results. Okay.
You could
think
change
you
it because I went
can.
in and changed mine.
Oh, okay, good.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good.
Is
All
there a way that you can suggest to Dr. Tooker that on the assignments, like that particular piece is like explicitly stated? Like I was lucky and reached out for SCOE, obviously, when it came to the thing, but like, is there a way that just in the future on that assignment, that little tidbit can be posted?
Yeah, and maybe I need to do better about that. Maybe I can do that at the orientation. So that's something in the future that I need to be aware of. And I appreciate that feedback. But
Yeah, like if
I'll
it's just
wear
on
that.
the, yeah, if it's just on the assignment piece, I think that would be perfect because we all just reflect and go back to that piece.
Sure.
But it's all growing and getting better, right? So
Yeah, and what I want you to also understand, and I'm glad Dr. Kedziora is here tonight, we are all student-centered, right? At the end of the day, we get satisfaction in you succeeding and doing well. So I don't want you to feel like we'll never, we will always err on the side of what's best for you guys if you communicate the best you can, right? And so, and this is our first time doing a cohort from scratch. There was somebody else who was doing the leadership in this program before Dr. Tooker, and it's 100 times better than it was. 100 times. I can say that right now as somebody who's been here since day one. So
I've actually gotten that feedback from previous students that I work with that have gone through this program. We're like, oh, they're doing it this way now. And they were like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. And
Yeah.
you guys are so lucky. So no, it's growing and getting better. So I'm excited.
all right, so you've been warned about me already then. So that's
No, not at all.
good.
Positive things, I promise.
All right, we'll see. I'm not going to go over these, but what I want you to, because there's about 45 or 50, or it goes step by step. So you probably don't need this because it's pretty darn intuitive, right? For those of you who've already done this, you could probably shake your head and say, yeah, but all these are here for you. Okay. And again, this is the one thing that people get hung up on. Like I would say the 7 to 15 credits is fine, but that's, if you didn't do it, it's fine. Okay. So again, this is all here as a resource for you. I'm not going to go over it because it doesn't make sense to. I would pay close attention to this part because if you don't pay and your credit doesn't go through, then you're not going to get credit for Cal APA. So put your credit card number in, please, correctly. And when you register. But other than that, that's what I got for this. So I am going to stop sharing my screen so I can see your lovely faces. And I am going to take any general questions that you might have. And for those of you who want to stick around and have maybe specific questions or anything else, I'm happy to do that. But as far as your obligation beyond tonight, I don't have anything else for you other than to say, this is very doable. I know I go over a lot tonight, but what I go over is to give you the skills and resources kind of as an overview so you can see kind of what you're up against. When it comes down to it, all you really have to do is fill out the templates thoroughly and answer the questions. Okay. I do want you to live by my adage that suffering is never mandatory. So please, if you need help, if you need support, please reach out. Don't hesitate to do that. That's why I'm here. And I really, really do want to be able to help. Okay. So with that, I'm going to stop recording, but I'm still going to take questions. Okay. So with that, let me